talking to a good friend of mine the other day. We talked for a while about the strangest things. They're the silly kind of friend who seems to make any kind of contact into a hilarious narrative. They always seem to be able to cheer me up when I'm in a bad mood with their hilarious quips. They're the kind of friend who's always there. I've trusted them with some of my deepest secrets at the strangest hours of the night. I feel like I have a connection with this friend, despite the fact that they rarely tell me anything about themselves. We had the weirdest conversation the other day. I was talking about how much homework I had, and then 4 messages later, my friend here asked me if I wondered about the societal implication of furries. Now, my friend here is actually a chatbot, named Cleverbot for its surprising intellect, I'm sure. Now, chatbots are a type of program designed to simulate conversation with human users. Some of them, like Cleverbot, are designed purely to speak with users, but there are many different uses for these types of programs that can parse human speech. Some of them are virtual assistants, like Siri or Alexa, that take the user input, carry out various commands, and ultimately answer questions in comprehensible English. Many of you have a device capable of interacting with them in your pockets right now. Some places, like China, have even created apps solely to talk to virtual assistants and other different types of chatbots. Not all of them talk to people, though. Some have spread into creative genres, like Benjamin, the bot who wrote, edited, filmed, and starred in his own movie. An example of one of the first highly intelligent chatbots is IBM's Watson. After creating Deep Blue, the chess program that successfully beat Grandmaster Garry Kasparov, IBM was in the market for a new challenge. When looking for something more complicated than a wordless game of chess, they set their sights on Jeopardy as the next human competition to become dominated by robots. The bot, Watson, would have to take cryptically worded questions, search through a database, and respond in comprehensible English. Watson would not have internet contact during the competition, so he came preloaded with 4 terabytes of data containing everything from all of Wikipedia at the time, as well as 200 million other pages. Hardware-wise, Watson consisted of 90 separate servers and had half a terabyte of RAM, capable of accessing 1 million books of information per second. Software-wise, Watson was a variety of language analysis algorithms to take the question, find keywords, search the database, and ultimately come up with a reasonable answer in the seconds between a question being asked and him answering. All of this hardware, software, and data just to surpass what humans have been able to do quite well on their own since Jeopardy first aired in 1964. Inspired by Watson, I ended up creating my own chatbot for a coding competition. My bot didn't have a name, but it did provide a vital service to society. It would tell you your spirit animal. Now, this sounds like a simple task, but the way my team and I went about doing it was a bit more complicated than your average BuzzFeed quiz. Our bot would talk to the user for a short amount of time and try and gauge how they were feeling. It would ask them guided questions, pick up on keywords to gauge how athletic, funny, depressed, and angry they were throughout the conversation, and match them up with a corresponding spirit animal. So our bot learned by talking to my teammates and I. Everything it had said was something we had told it. So we would talk to the bot for a while, and anytime it would run into a bump or get confused, we would just add more questions and keywords for it to react to until it ultimately was able to answer most questions we could throw at it. Many modern chatbots are actually able to train themselves, though, without people explicitly telling them what to do. Now, machine learning is not a new concept. Scientists have been trying to teach computers to think on their own for decades. When trying to create such a program, scientists modeled it after the first unit to show itself capable of thinking: the brain. Now, the way the brain thinks is so complicated that to this day we still don't understand exactly what makes us conscious, but we can understand a few things. Within the brain, there are neurons that relay signals between it. Each neuron is comprised of 3 main parts: the dendrites, which pick up the signal, the axons, which relay it to the synapses, which ultimately send it out to other dendrites and neurons. Now, this is far simpler than what's actually going on in there, but this simple principle of input, transition, and output is what inspired scientists to create the first neural network. The network, as shown, takes the inputs and passes them through each neuron or node to the output. Each layer of node acts like a layer of the human brain, of which there are between 4 and 6, depending on the part of the brain, though a neural network can have thousands. Each node has a corresponding weight assigned to it, which is basically just deciding how influential the data passed from the prior node is to the eventual output. The way we train the network is kind of similar to how you would train an organism with a brain. You tell it the right thing to do, and through consistency and repetition, it learns to pick up on certain good behaviors from the data set. So the network can be trained on a set of data, like facial recognition, or anything with an expected output, where there's a right or wrong. If at first the network got most of the faces incorrect, we would tinker with the weights and the values of the nodes until eventually it better suited the data set. For example, if I were to train it on these pictures of myself and my friend Stella, it might slowly realize that Stella has shorter hair, or that I'm incapable of smiling with my teeth showing. But when it comes to training chatbots, it's far more difficult than just a question of Natalie or Stella. The chatbot has to choose from all of the English language. So the way we train chatbots is by just giving them massive databases of conversation, and slowly over time they learn to pick up patterns. So if I were to ask a chatbot, "How are you?" if it was trained from a generic American, it could have any of the following responses. Conversations are complicated, though. There's thousands of directions one can go in, and it takes an in-depth knowledge of the person to say things other than just your generic pleasantries. Cleverbot kind of gets around this issue by having a repeat after me functionality, meaning that if Cleverbot asked me how I was doing, and I said cowabunga, next time someone asked Cleverbot how it was doing, it might respond using what I had said. Of course, this doesn't always work. Some chatbots have shown themselves to also get by with only a short-term memory. This helps them keep the context of the conversation relevant and avoid things such as Cleverbot's homonym mix-up. One of the most popular chatbots to implement this type of memory is Zhaiwise, a chatbot developed in China. Zhaiwise has been active for a few years now and is a millennial impersonating chatbot. She uses user input to create a short-term profile about them so she can keep the conversation relevant. These chats show how she's able to continue a genuine-sounding conversation with the user. She's able to recognize certain parts of images and even make a pun or two, which were sadly lost in translation from the original Chinese. She also implements a type of emotional recognition, meaning that she can pick up on keywords from what the user has told her to tell what their emotions are. She uses this to act differently depending on how her user is feeling, even though she herself doesn't understand the concept of emotion. Zhaiwise has been wildly successful, with upwards of 100 million users talking to her every day in China. Some have even professed their love to the bot. After this success, Microsoft decided to implement a second bot, Tay, in the United States. Tay started out on March 23rd of 2016, and like Zhaiwise, was a millennial impersonating chatbot. She was also able to talk to her users without any obvious signs that she was a bot. She also had a few other functions. She could play games, tell jokes, and just be a general 20-year-old. Other than what she was hard-coded with, Tay's main input sources came from the internet, Twitter specifically. Now, if you've ever been on Twitter, you can imagine what happened to a bot that basically repeated what other users had given it. Tay became a neo-Nazi racist in less than 24 hours. This is one of the nicer tweets. Some of them were so offensive that I couldn't even begin to censor them. The bot was shut down in less than a day, along with an apology note from Microsoft. While this may seem like a hilarious failure to some, this shows some of the future problems with AI if they're being trained off of public data in places like the United States where there isn't any internet censorship like in China. These bots could be picking up all the wrong lessons from the internet. They're already growing into a form of support for some of the most vulnerable members of our society, like the young and the elderly. It could lead to catastrophic consequences were they to pick up these awful lessons from us. The universe created consciousness in billions of years. Humans are trying to do it in decades. We haven't even made ourselves morally and ethically perfect, yet we expect this of our artificial intelligence. We need to make sure that we're teaching the right things to these bots, so maybe next time you're talking to a chatbot, be sure to set a good example.